How do you run 42,000 cows on land bigger than New York City just minutes from Disney World? How does a ranch use alligators to guard endangered birds? And how is Florida's largest cattle operation also fighting suburban sprawl and winning? This is Deseret Ranches, a 300,000-acre empire of beef, wildlife, and bold ideas. What happens here will change how you think about ranching. Subscribe to Digital Papyrus for more stories that uncover the hidden giants of America. Deseret Ranches began with an ambitious vision on untamed land. In 1950, a 50,000-acre tract of cut-over timberland and scrub was purchased southeast of Orlando to establish a cattle operation. Early managers faced the challenge of turning this wild, low-quality grassland into productive pasture. But they succeeded. Incredibly, the ranch's acreage quadrupled within only a few years after founding. Over subsequent decades, Deseret Ranches kept expanding by acquiring adjacent lands. By the late 1990s, it had grown to over 300,000 acres of contiguous ranch land, roughly 50 miles by 30 miles of old Florida range, an area about the size of New York City in land area. From the start, the ranch's founders saw agriculture as a safe, long-term investment and a source of food security for the region. They believed that well-managed farms could preserve value over time and even help feed people in times of need. This guiding vision led Deseret to prioritize solid land stewardship and steady growth. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, as Central Florida remained mostly rural, the ranch steadily improved its pastures and infrastructure. Long before Orlando's theme parks or the Kennedy Space Center arrived, Deseret Ranches was raising cattle and citrus here and learning how to thrive in Florida's environment. By 1970, the ranch was already among Florida's largest, and by 1997, it was noted as possibly the world's largest beef ranch by acreage. In those years, the land was said to be worth nearly $900 million, though the ranch has always been privately held and doesn't publicly disclose financial details. Importantly, Deseret Ranches was not established as a hobby or a tax write-off. It's a for-profit working ranch that pays taxes and reinvests in improving the land. From its humble start on cut-over scrub, the ranch grew into a Florida cattle empire guided by patience and prudent management.
A cowboy on horseback herds cattle across the wide pastures of Deseret Ranches, which maintains one of the largest cow-calf herds in the nation. Today, Deseret Ranches is renowned for its massive cattle herd and efficient operations. The ranch runs approximately 42,500 mother cows, a herd size that places it among the largest ranches in the United States in terms of cow-calf operations. In fact, Florida's entire beef cattle population is about 883,000 head, and Deseret alone accounts for roughly 5% of the state's beef cows. This single ranch is a heavyweight in U.S. ranching. It's often cited as the most productive cow-calf ranch in the country. To manage such numbers, the ranch is divided into 14 separate units or sub-ranches. Each unit has around 3,100 cows and is run almost like a standalone ranch with dedicated pastors and crew. Remarkably, a single cowboy can be responsible for roughly 1,200 head of cattle, using horses and modern tools to tend the herd. Cowboys, ranch hands, and their families actually live on the property. About 90 ranchers and families reside on the ranch in several small communities. This human element gives Deseret a classic cowboy culture vibe, even as it operates on an industrial scale. Annual calf production is enormous. Each year's calf crop, tens of thousands of calves, is sent off to feedlots in the Midwest and Great Plains to be finished for beef. In the year 2000 alone, the ranch shipped about 16 million pounds of calves to market. These figures illustrate why Deseret Ranches is a cornerstone of Florida's cattle industry and a significant player nationally. The cattle at Deseret are specially adapted to Florida's semi-tropical climate. Florida can be hot, humid, and buggy, tough on typical beef breeds, so the ranch developed its own cattle breeds over time. The herd is largely a mix of hardy Brahman, Zebu cattle crossed with Angus, Simmental, Red Pole, and South Devon breeds. These crossbreeds can better tolerate Florida's heat, humidity, and pests while still producing quality beef. Cattle health and welfare are priorities in the operation. The ranch practices humane handling and even has plans to protect the herd during hurricanes and tropical storms. This combination of scale, efficient management, and breed innovation has made the Deseret herd both uniquely Floridian and highly productive.
Challenges on the range and resilience. Running a ranch of this magnitude isn't without challenges. Over 70-plus years, Deseret Ranches has weathered environmental, agricultural, and economic trials and learned to adapt at each turn. One major challenge is Florida's environment itself. The state's climate swings from dry winters to torrential summer rains, and much of the ranch land is flat, low-lying terrain. In heavy rains, pastures can flood, and in dry spells, water becomes scarce. To address this, the ranch invested in an extensive water management system. They constructed large retention reservoirs and ponds on the property to capture storm runoff and hold it. One 500-acre reservoir known as Jug Island was built in the 1990s to naturally filter and clean water before it leaves the ranch. This project was so effective at improving water quality that it won the Florida Commissioner of Agriculture's Environmental Leadership Award for water conservation. The ranch has since added additional retention areas, like a new East Point Reservoir, to create a network of wetlands that protect against flooding, improve water quality, and double as wildlife habitat. These efforts go above and beyond legal requirements, purely as a proactive measure to steward natural resources. Thanks to this planning, even Florida's wild rainfall doesn't stop the ranch. In fact, water leaving the property is often cleaner than when it entered. Another challenge has been disease and pests, especially in the citrus groves. In recent years, Florida's citrus industry has been devastated by diseases like citrus greening and citrus canker, which kill orange trees. Deseret citrus operations were not immune. The ranch had built up 1,600 acres of orange groves, about 200,000 citrus trees, mostly Valencia oranges, for juice since the early days. After all, cattle and citrus is in the ranch's name. But with the onslaught of greening disease in the 2010s, many citrus farms in the region shut down. Deseret Ranches has seen citrus yields decline and has had to adapt by diversifying into other crops, as we'll discuss. They continue to care for their remaining groves and have experimented with disease management, but the challenge of keeping citrus viable is ongoing. Florida's wildlife can be another test of ranch operations. Feral hogs, for example, root up pastures, alligators lurk in watering holes, and deer can compete for forage. Rather than fight nature, the ranch chose to work with it, investing in robust wildlife management programs, more on that in a later section. By hiring a full-time wildlife biologist and implementing controlled hunting and habitat projects, Deseret turns some wildlife conflicts into opportunities, like offering limited hunting permits for hogs and deer, which provides both population control and ranch income. This approach has largely mitigated what could be a major challenge in a state known for its gators and wild hogs. Perhaps the biggest long-term challenge, however, is population growth and development pressure surrounding the ranch. Deseret Ranch sits in the path of Orlando's expansion. Suburbs and highways are steadily creeping towards its borders. As Central Florida's population booms, there's constant pressure to convert ranch land into housing and strip malls. The ranch's response has been resolute. For over 70 years, Deseret refused countless offers to sell off pieces of land to developers. Instead, the ranch owners took the initiative to plan ahead for inevitable growth in a responsible way. In 2013, Florida's governor invited Deseret Ranches to collaborate on a regional task force for future transportation corridors, recognizing that the ranch's land would be key to the area's development. Ranch managers worked closely with Osceola County officials to craft a long-range master plan for one large section of the property, known as the North Ranch Sector Plan. This plan, finalized in 2015, maps out a 70-year vision for how parts of the ranch could gradually urbanize in an orderly, environmentally conscious way.
It designates specific areas for future communities and commerce, while setting aside about 25 to 30% of the land for conservation and water storage to ensure green space and ecosystem health. The ranch even partnered with a developer on an early-phase project called Sunbridge, which will someday make homes, farms, and high-tech research facilities on former ranch land, all designed around themes of agriculture and sustainability. By proactively engaging in smart land use planning, Deseret ranches turned the challenge of urban sprawl into an opportunity. Rather than succumb to piecemeal sprawl, the ranch is shaping growth to protect what makes Central Florida special: its water, wildlife, and quality of life, even as development eventually comes. This careful balancing act has earned praise from local leaders. In 2024, when the ranch's holding company petitioned to annex 52,000 acres into the city of Orlando for future planning, Orlando's mayor commended Deseret as responsible landowners with a 70-plus-year vision plan on responsible and sustainable growth. It's rare for a ranch to influence regional planning to this extent, and it speaks to Deseret's determination to address challenges decades in advance. Through floods, droughts, diseases, hurricanes, and growth pressure, Deseret Ranches has proven remarkably resilient. Its strategies, innovate in operations, work with nature, and plan ahead have turned challenges into just another part of the ranch's ongoing story.
While cattle is the cornerstone, Deseret Ranches today is a diversified agricultural enterprise that stretches well beyond beef. In fact, the ranch proudly calls itself a multiple-use operation, managing a mosaic of agricultural and natural resources simultaneously. Citrus groves have long been a part of the ranch. As mentioned, about 1,600 acres of oranges, mostly Valencia, are grown, yielding juice oranges for Florida's OJ industry, and some fresh market tangerines and tangelos. The citrus groves are interspersed among pastures, which actually benefits both. Cattle graze up to the edges of irrigation canals, and the groves get pollination help from the wildlands around them. However, with citrus hit by disease, this enterprise is now smaller than it once was. In addition to citrus, Deseret Ranches cultivates row crops and sod on portions of its land. Roughly 1,100 acres of farmland under pivot irrigation are used to grow various crops, often in rotation. Some fields produce improved pasture grasses and silage to feed the ranch's cattle. Other fields have grown vegetables and grains. Everything from potatoes and corn to soybeans, sorghum, and even cauliflower has been tried on the ranch's irrigated plots. Notably, sod farming, growing grass turf for landscaping, is a successful venture here. Sections of the ranch are leased out to sod producers who harvest grass for use in yards and along highways. The fertile soil and warm climate allow multiple sod cuttings per year, making it a profitable use of the land. These farming endeavors diversify the ranch's income and make sure no acre sits idle. As the ranch says, they look for additional opportunities to capture value from the land, and if that means growing cucumbers or turf grass in addition to cows, they're willing to do it. Timber and forestry are another facet. Scattered across Deseret's vast acreage are stands of southern pine, cypress swamps, and hardwood hammocks. The ranch selectively harvests timber following a practice of natural regeneration, meaning they allow forests to reseed and grow back for decades before cutting again. Pines are periodically thinned for timber, and the ranch even harvests naturally occurring palmetto palms for the landscaping market. Palm trees are plentiful on the property. Rather than let extra palms go to waste, they dig some up to sell to nurseries and developers who need mature palms for new landscaping. The approach is conservative. Timber is harvested at a sustainable rate, ensuring the ranch's woods continue to provide wildlife habitat and beauty. In fact, if you fly over the ranch, you'll see a true patchwork: green forests, open prairies, orange groves, and fields, reflecting the multiple uses of the land at any given time. Deseret Ranches also takes advantage of some unique Florida resources beneath the soil. Beneath parts of the ranch lie thick deposits of prehistoric seashell beds. Over millions of years, these fossilized shells formed a hard aggregate that is excellent for construction. The ranch permits contractors to mine shell rock on site, digging as deep as 50 feet to excavate shell material. The shells are crushed and used as road base for building highways and roads across Florida.
This shell mining operation turns what was ancient seafloor into a modern commodity, all within the ranch's property. It's another example of how diversified the business is. They're not just selling beef, but literally selling the ground underfoot in a managed way. The ranch also generates income from hunting leases and permits, allowing limited guided hunts for deer, turkey, and hog on the property, as a way to both manage wildlife populations and bring in fees. One of the newest and most forward-looking enterprises at Deseret Ranches is solar energy farming. Florida's sunshine is as abundant as its rain, and in the past few years, the ranch has partnered with utility companies to put some of its wide-open acreage to work generating clean power. Florida Power and Light, the state's largest electric utility, approached the ranch about leasing land for solar arrays. After careful study to ensure it wouldn't interfere with cattle or environment, Deseret agreed. In 2019, the first of several utility-scale solar farms was installed on the ranch's property. Vast fields of solar panels now soak up the Florida sun on parts of the ranch that were previously unimproved scrub. As of 2021, there were 3 solar fields operating and 2 more planned, for a total of 5 solar sites on the ranch in the near future. These solar farms feed renewable energy into Florida's grid and represent a new revenue stream, through land leases, for Deseret. Ranch managers call it a really good working relationship. The solar panels quietly generate power while cattle continue to graze nearby, and nothing is permanently lost from agricultural use. Embracing solar energy aligns with the ranch's sustainability ethic, and it proves that even a 70-year-old cattle outfit can innovate with the times. Rows of solar panels on Deseret Ranch land, part of a partnership to host 5 solar energy farms on the property. These panels generate clean power while cattle graze the surrounding lands. All these operations, cattle, citrus, farming, timber, shell mining, sod, and solar, make Deseret Ranches a diversified powerhouse in agriculture. The ranch likes to say it fulfills many functions at once, producing food, producing raw materials, managing habitat, and even producing energy. With about 80 to 90 full-time employees on site, Deseret runs like a small town dedicated to agriculture. It has cowboys, citrus grove crews, mechanics, agronomists, and even wildlife and natural resource specialists all working together. This diversity not only provides multiple income streams, but also buffers the ranch. If cattle prices drop or a citrus disease hits, the ranch still has other ventures to carry it through. That's been a key to its longevity. Far from the stereotypical rancher image of use it up and move on, Deseret Ranches has earned a reputation as an environmental steward. The philosophy has always been that productive agriculture and conservation can go hand in hand. Given the ranch's enormous land holdings in an ecologically sensitive state, Deseret's managers feel a responsibility to preserve wildlife and natural systems even as they raise cattle and crops. One striking fact is the sheer abundance of wildlife thriving on the ranch. Surveys have documented over 350 species of wild animals, including nearly 250 species of birds living on Deseret Ranch's land. This includes iconic Florida fauna like white-tailed deer, Osceola wild turkeys, bobcats, and American alligators, as well as rarer creatures such as the threatened wood stork, sandhill crane, bald eagle, and snail kite. The fact that such biodiversity flourishes alongside active pastures is no accident. It's the result of deliberate habitat management. Deseret Ranch maintains a careful balance of pasture, wetland, and forest on its acreage. Instead of clearing and draining all the land, the ranch has preserved large wetlands, left wooded tracts intact, and created what they call a mosaic landscape. From the air, you see patches of green flatwoods, dark cypress swamps, open marshes and prairie, interwoven with the grassy cattle pastures. This patchwork design means wildlife always has corridors and refuges, even while agricultural activities go on nearby. A wood stork forages at one of the ranch's wetlands. Deseret Ranches created a safe nesting island that hosts hundreds of wood stork nests, making it one of Florida's largest rookeries for this endangered wading bird. The ranch's team includes a full-time wildlife biologist and natural resource manager who monitor animal populations and advise on land use. One of their proudest achievements is the creation of a wood stork rookery on the property, essentially a man-made nesting sanctuary for an endangered wading bird. Some years ago, ranch managers noticed that wood storks, big, prehistoric-looking white birds, needed secure nesting areas. In response, they built an island in the middle of a pond and dug the water around it deep enough to create a moat. They then encouraged alligators to inhabit the pond. The gators patrol the moat and keep raccoons and snakes away from the birds' nests on the island. The result has been astonishing. That little island turned into one of the largest wood stork rookeries in the state, with 400+ nests each spring protected by the alligator moat. This innovative solution cost the ranch little, but had huge conservation impact. Wood storks and many other water birds now safely raise their young on the ranch each year. Birdwatchers would be amazed to see thousands of egrets, herons, and storks roosting in those trees during nesting season. And importantly, this was done voluntarily by the ranch, without any government mandate or funds, purely out of an ethic of doing what's right for the environment. Water conservation is another pillar of Deseret's sustainability efforts. We discussed the large reservoirs and retention ponds built to control water flow and quality. The ranch also takes care with groundwater. For instance, using canals to capture rainwater and high-tech irrigation systems to minimize waste in the citrus groves. They've installed microjet sprinklers that deliver water right to the base of each tree and soil moisture sensors that guide when to irrigate, ensuring they only use the amount of water absolutely needed. In the row crop fields, center pivot irrigation is used because it's the most water-efficient method for large fields. Excess runoff is collected by drains and routed back into the reservoir canals, forming a closed-loop system that recycles water and prevents fertilizer from polluting the watershed. Thanks to measures like these, even though the ranch sits over an important aquifer recharge area, its impact on regional water resources has been positive. It actually supplies water to nearby communities. In one case, Deseret Ranch was able to sell surplus reservoir water to the city of Cocoa, Florida, to boost municipal water supply. This is a testament to how well they manage and store water on the ranch. In terms of everyday practices, Deseret Ranch has embraced many sustainable ranching techniques. They rotate cattle through different pastures to avoid overgrazing, allowing grass to recover and also reducing erosion. Controlled burns are used in some areas to maintain healthy rangeland and prevent wildfires. The ranch avoids overstocking animals, keeping the herd size in balance with what the land can feed naturally. Even energy use on the ranch is getting greener. Besides hosting solar farms, they use solar-powered pumps in remote pastures and are exploring renewable fuel options for farm equipment. It's clear that for Deseret, sustainability isn't just a buzzword, it's a way of life that's been ingrained for decades. As the ranch leadership puts it, when you plant, nurture, and harvest for a living, you learn to appreciate natural systems and understand that your livelihood depends on the health of the land.
One of the most remarkable aspects of Deseret ranches is how it approaches the future. Sitting on 450 square miles of land in a rapidly growing state, the ranch is literally an anti-sprawl champion by virtue of its continued existence. If not for the ranch, much of this land might have already become a sea of suburban subdivisions. Instead, it remains open range and habitat. But the ranch owners know that change is inevitable over the next 50+ years. Rather than resist it blindly, they are actively shaping the future to prevent unchecked sprawl. Map of Deseret ranch land in red and yellow in central Florida, showing designated future development areas, Sunbridge and North Ranch Sector Plan, and large conservation and agriculture zones. This long-term plan is aimed at avoiding haphazard suburban sprawl by planning growth in a controlled way. The cornerstone of this effort is the North Ranch Sector Plan, a long-range land use plan created in partnership with county planners. This plan looks out to the year 2060 and beyond and envisions how a substantial part of the ranch could gradually urbanize while protecting environmental resources and cattle operations elsewhere. Under the plan, about 133,000 acres of ranch land in Osceola County
are set aside for mixed-use development in the far future, but with important caveats. Roughly 29% of that area will remain conservation lands and 13% for agriculture and water reservoirs, even when the rest is developed. In other words, any new communities built on the ranch's property must include preserved wetlands, wildlife corridors, and working farmland by design. The plan also coordinates major infrastructure like new highways and transit corridors in advance, so that development happens around planned town centers and transportation links, not in a scattershot way. By doing this, Deseret Ranches aims to prevent the kind of sprawl that plagues many fast-growing regions, where growth leapfrogs without adequate roads or regard for ecosystems. A tangible example is the Sunbridge development, shown in yellow on the map, which is the first piece of the plan. Sunbridge will take a 19,000-acre portion of the ranch and over the next 20 years gradually build neighborhoods, schools, businesses, and even high-tech research facilities themed around agriculture and conservation. It's projected to eventually have 37,000 homes and 20 million square feet of commercial space, but arranged in a thoughtful way with green belts and even working farms integrated. The idea is to make it a model community that coexists with the ranch ethos, not a typical subdivision. All the while, huge swaths of the ranch around it will stay undeveloped to serve as buffer and habitat. In fact, Deseret intends to keep ranching on much of its land indefinitely. Only select areas near existing growth will be converted to towns. And even then, the ranch has insisted on standards that maintain quality of life and environmental integrity. Local governments have lauded this approach. It's seen as a win-win. The region gets planned growth where it's needed, and in return, 500,000 people, projected by 2080, will have communities that still respect nature. Meanwhile, the ranch and its open lands will form a permanent bulwark against chaotic sprawl. In a recent annexation proposal, the ranch's management emphasized that conserving natural resources is always the first consideration in their planning. This statement underscores how unusual Deseret Ranches is. It's a major landowner actively championing smart growth and conservation, when it could simply sell out to the highest bidder. For now and the foreseeable future, cattle will keep grazing and wildlife will keep roaming over most of Deseret's acreage. But if and when development knocks on the door, the groundwork is laid for growth that adds value instead of sprawl. It's a forward-thinking legacy that the ranch is building, just as important as its legacy of beef or oranges.
Did you know one single ranch in South Texas is bigger than the entire state of Rhode Island? At 825,000 acres, King Ranch sprawls across an area so vast it's hard to fathom. But sheer size isn't its only claim to fame. This legendary ranch created America's first homegrown beef cattle breed, bred a Triple Crown-winning racehorse, introduced exotic Indian antelopes to Texas, and even has its own line of Ford pickup trucks named after it. If that sounds surprising, we're just getting started. Today, I'm diving deep into the story of King Ranch, a first-person journey through its history and how it evolved from an 1800s cattle camp into a modern agribusiness empire. By the end, you'll see how King Ranch blends old-school ranching grit with innovative business savvy in a way that's kept it thriving for over 170 years. Before we hit the trail, please take a second to lasso that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating agriculture and business stories. Now, saddle up and let's explore the wild ride of King Ranch, from its legendary past to its cutting-edge present. From humble origins to cattle breeding legends, let's start at the beginning. The King Ranch story began in 1853 when Captain Richard King, a former steamboat pilot, bought a patch of wild South Texas scrubland and started running cattle. What he probably didn't imagine is that his ranch would one day support tens of thousands of cattle and pioneer entirely new breeds tailored to thrive in harsh conditions. But that's exactly what happened. Historically, South Texas ranching wasn't for the faint of heart. Droughts, cattle diseases, and the challenge of getting cattle to distant markets all threatened early ranchers. King Ranch confronted these head-on. In the 1890s, Richard King's son-in-law Robert Clayburgh drilled deep for water and struck a veritable underground river in 1899, a godsend after a brutal drought locals grimly called the Great Die-Up. With abundant artesian wells flowing, the ranch could sustain its herds through dry spells. Clayburgh also tackled cattle disease. Texas fever ticks were killing cattle and blocking sales, so he invented the first cattle dipping bats to rid cows of the deadly ticks. These innovations solved two huge problems, water and disease, that had long limited South Texas ranching. Market access was the next hurdle. Back then, the ranch's location was remote, with no easy way to ship cattle out. King Ranch's solution? Build the infrastructure themselves. Robert Clayburgh and Henrietta King, Richard's widow, helped finance and route a new railroad, the St. Louis, Brownsville, and Amp, Mexico line, in 1904, even founding the town of Kingsville as a rail stop. They also built one of the world's largest cattle shipping rail yards at the time. Suddenly, cattle from King Ranch could reach national markets by rail, a game changer for profitability. Breeding a new breed, Santa Gertrudis. With water, disease control, and transport in hand, King Ranch turned to breeding better cattle. Early 20th century ranch superintendent Robert J. Clayburgh, Jr., grandson of Richard King, had an ambitious idea: cross hardy Brahman cattle from India with British shorthorn cattle to create a new animal that could handle the heat, drought, and distance of Texas, yet still fatten up with quality beef. After decades of selective breeding, including one bull named Monkey who became the prolific founding sire, they succeeded. In 1940, the Santa Gertrudis breed, named after the ranch's Santa Gertrudis land grant, became the first beef cattle breed ever developed in the United States. This was a historic milestone in animal husbandry, and Santa Gertrudis cattle put King Ranch on the global map of cattle breeding. Santa Gertrudis cattle were designed to survive and profit. They're solid red, heat-tolerant, and hardy, with 3 of 8 Brahman and 5 of 8 shorthorn genetics, the magic ratio the ranch found ideal for tough environments. These cattle can gain weight fast. Bulls often pack on over 3.3 pounds per day and grow large, mature bulls over 2,000 pounds. Equally important, the cows are fertile and maternal. Many breed as yearlings and raise a calf every year. A Santa Gertrudis cow can stay productive well past age 12, sometimes calving until 15 to 18 years old, far longer than typical beef cows. This longevity means lower replacement costs and more calves over a cow's lifetime, i.e. higher profitability. Speaking of profit, the numbers tell a striking story. In a Texas A and Amp M Ranch to Rail trial, a pen of Santa Gertrudis steers returned plus $100.87 net profit per head, while steers from dozens of other ranches averaged a $50 loss per head under the same conditions. In feedlot tests, Santa Gertrudis steers gained around 3.9 pounds per day on feed with efficient conversion, about 6 pounds of feed per pound of gain. They consistently reach USDA quality grades of choice or better, debunking the myth that heat-tolerant cattle can't produce well-marbled beef. This Gertz breed spread worldwide to Australia, South America, and beyond, carrying King Ranch's legacy with it. The rise of the American Red. If you fast forward to today, King Ranch's cattle program is still innovating. Their newest star is the American Red, a composite breed the ranch co-developed in partnership with the Santa Gertrudis and Red Angus associations. Essentially, American Red cattle blend the best of the Santa Gertrudis, heat hardiness, longevity, with the marbling and calving ease of British breeds like Red Angus. The result is a red-hided, heat-tolerant cow that excels in the feedlot and the pasture alike. How do we know American Red is the real deal? King Ranch has data. Even under South Texas drought conditions, their mature American Red cows have maintained a 90% plus pregnancy rate while eating 28% less feed and hay than typical herds. That's huge. It means they stay fertile and productive in tough times without expensive feeding, a major cost advantage. And when those calves hit the feedlot, they're grading 80% choice or prime on the rail. In other words, these cows save money on inputs and still produce top-dollar beef. American Red cows on King Ranch average an 8.4-year effective lifespan, and a full 20% of the herd is over 10 years old. 4,600 granny cows still raising calves. This matters because a cow that produces calves for a decade earns 59% more total income than one that only lasts 6 years. Durability equals profit, and King Ranch has bred durability into their herd. It's impressive to see a ranch so steeped in history still leading the charge in 21st century cattle genetics. They've even developed their own in-house data systems. Since the early 2000s, King Ranch runs a custom expected progeny difference (EPD) program to genetically track and predict traits like fertility, efficiency, and carcass quality. By mixing time-tested ranching experience with big data, King Ranch continues to chase that ever-elusive, most profitable animal possible. Before we move on, let's recap the cattle innovations born at King Ranch that solved major challenges. Water and drought. Drilling artesian wells and spacing windmills every couple of miles across the ranch ensured cattle and wildlife never had to roam far for water, even in drought. This was a lifesaver during South Texas dry spells. Disease. King Ranch pioneered tick eradication with dipping bats and later participated in breakthroughs like screwworm elimination, a deadly cattle parasite, in the region. Breeding Bos indicus, Brahmin, blood into their cattle also gave natural resistance to parasites and heat. Market access. From early cattle drives and steamboat shipments to building railroads and shipping pens, King Ranch aggressively created routes to get their beef to market. They turned a remote location into an export hub through sheer will and investment. Quality and efficiency. By creating Santa Gertrudis and American Red, the ranch solved the puzzle of how to ranch in a hot, rugged land without sacrificing beef quality or weight gain. These breeds, and the ranch's ongoing genetic improvements, tackle the age-old trade-off between hardiness and performance. That's a lot of ground covered, literally and figuratively, in the cattle realm. And King Ranch isn't just about cattle. In fact, horses were an equally important part of the ranch's legacy, so let's trot over to that story next. Horsepower, quarter horses, and a Triple Crown winner. It's often said that horses and cattle built King Ranch. The ranch's cowboys, known as caninos, King's men, needed tough, agile horses to work those huge pastures. From the early days, King Ranch set out to raise the finest ranch horses in America, and many would say they succeeded. In fact, the American Quarter Horse Association, AQHA, Stud Book Number 1, the very first registered quarter horse, was a King Ranch stallion named Winthy. That's right, the foundation of modern quarter horses traces straight back to King Ranch bloodlines. Quarter horse dynasty on the ranch. The ranch's horse program really took off in 1916 when Robert Clayburgh Sr., Richard King's son-in-law, purchased a legendary sorrel colt named Old Sorrel. Old Sorrel became the foundation sire of King Ranch's line. Every quarter horse on King Ranch today still descends from him. Bred to the ranch's local Mustang Mares, Old Sorrel produced horses with stamina, cow sense, and speed. His grandsons and great-grandsons then carried the torch. Wimpy, one of his grandsons, won the Fort Worth Stock Show in 1941 and earned that AQHA #1 spot, cementing King Ranch's reputation for top horses. But perhaps the most famous King Ranch quarter horses came a few decades later, Mr. Asan Pepe and his son Pepe Asan Badger, affectionately Little Pepe. These names are royalty in the quarter horse cutting world. Mr. San Pepe, a sorrel stallion King Ranch acquired in the 1970s, became a two-time NCHA Open World Champion cutter, 1974 and 1976, and the AQHA World Cutting Champion in 1976, the first horse ever to win both those titles in 1 year. He was lightning quick on a cow and proved it by becoming the youngest horse inducted into the NCHA Hall of Fame up to that time. Mr. San Pepe also broke the earnings barrier, becoming the first cutting horse to win over $100,000 in open competition by 1978, a modest sum today, but a huge feat back then. His son, Pepe San Badger, Little Pepe, went on to even greater fame. Little Pepe won the NCHA Futurity in 1977, the NCHA Derby in 1978, and was in the Hall of Fame by 1980. He kept winning into the early 1980s and then proved to be an extraordinary sire. For years, Little Pepe was the all-time leading sire of NCHA cutting horses, with his progeny earning over $26 million in total. In fact, every quarter horse on King Ranch today goes back either to Mr. San Pepe or his son Little Pepe. That's how influential their bloodlines are. These horses exemplify King Ranch's horse breeding philosophy. Combine strong genetics, great trainers like the legendary Buster Welch, who trained both Pepe stallions, and lots of real-world ranch work to produce horses that excel both on the ranch and in the show pen. It's no exaggeration to say King Ranch is regarded as the birthplace of some of the finest quarter horses in America. The program seamlessly blended with the ranch's cattle operations. A good horse was as valuable as any piece of ranch equipment for working cattle. But King Ranch didn't stop at quarter horses. They set their sights on the highest levels of horse racing as well. Assault on the Racing World, a Texas thoroughbred triumph. In the 1930s and 40s, King Ranch made a bold foray into thoroughbred racing, applying their breeding expertise to the sport of kings. And boy, did they hit pay dirt. King Ranch is the only ranch in history to breed and own a Triple Crown winner, the chestnut stallion Assault, foaled on King Ranch in 1943. Assault, nicknamed the Club-Footed Comet for a hoof injury he overcame, swept the Kentucky Derby, Preakness, and Belmont Stakes in 1946, becoming the 7th Triple Crown champion ever, and to this day, the only Texas-bred horse to win the Triple Crown. If that wasn't enough, King Ranch also bred Middle Ground, who won the Kentucky Derby and Belmont in 1950. 2 classic winning thoroughbreds in 5 years from a ranch better known for cattle is nothing short of astonishing. The backstory of Assault is inspirational. As a foal, he stepped on a surveyor's stake on the ranch and badly injured his right front hoof. Part of the hoof had to be cut away, and thereafter he wore a special shoe. He would limp at a trot, but miraculously ran perfectly at full gallop, hence the club-footed moniker, though in stance his foot looked normal. Assault was by a King Ranch sire, Bold Venture, out of a King Ranch mare, and despite constant health issues, he battled kidney problems, a bad knee, you name it. He had heart and speed in spades. He won 18 races and earned $675,000 in the 1940s, a fortune at that time, and he brought huge prestige to King Ranch. The Triple Crown trophy he won still resides in the King Ranch main house, a symbol of how far a Texas ranch's horse program could go. Assault's racing success was not a fluke, but the result of deliberate effort. In the 1930s, King Ranch brought in proven thoroughbred sires like Bold Venture, the 1936 Derby winner, whom they bought in 1939, and fine brood mares to cross with their quarter-horse stock. They essentially created a hybrid vigor between American speed and their own rugged lines. The investment paid off handsomely. King Ranch's racing stable was not only nationally prominent, but one of the few that actually made money in racing. That's rare in the horse racing world, where fortunes are more often lost than made. Farming the land, cotton, citrus, and more. Ranching might be King Ranch's heart, but farming has become a big part of its lifeblood as well. Early on, Captain King and his wife Henrietta experimented with farming. Henrietta once ran an orchard and a dairy on the ranch to support locals. During the Civil War, King even made a tidy sum selling cotton via Mexico. These were hints of the future. Today, King Ranch is a major farming operation, not just in Texas, but also in Florida, producing everything from cotton to oranges. Texas farming, King cotton and turf grass. In South Texas, King Ranch now cultivates around 60,000 acres of crops, split about evenly between cotton and grain sorghum, milo. In fact, the ranch was a pioneer of cotton farming in the region. After 1900, they invested in clearing brush and irrigating land for cotton and built one of the first cotton gins in South Texas. Fast forward to today, and King Ranch is one of the largest cotton producers in the United States, still ginning its own cotton at a state-of-the-art facility on the ranch's Laurels division. If you wear a cotton shirt, there's a non-zero chance a few fibers came from King Ranch fields. But it's not just row crops. King Ranch has also become Texas's top producer of turf grass sod for lawns, sports fields, and golf courses. In 2007, the ranch's subsidiary King Ranch Turfgrass acquired Turfgrass America and emerged as the largest turfgrass producer in Texas. They now operate 14 turf farms and 6 distribution centers across the state. On these farms, they grow varieties of St. Augustine, Bermuda, zoysia, and other grasses adapted to different Texas climates. On a peak summer day, their Florida sod farm alone ships up to 700,000 square feet of sod for new lawns. That's about 12 football fields of grass in a single day. It's a far cry from cattle, but it shows how King Ranch has diversified by literally putting down new roots. They even have a division called Mini Verde that specializes in ultra-fine golf course greens turf, working with top golf clubs to perfect putting surfaces. The common thread, whether it's cotton or grass, King Ranch applies the same scale and innovation as they do in ranching. They leverage their huge land base and business know-how to branch into farming in a big way, adding revenue streams beyond beef. Florida operations, oranges, sugar, and more. Perhaps the most surprising chapter is that King Ranch is also a Florida farming powerhouse. Back in 1961, King Ranch first purchased land in South Florida's Everglades agricultural area, initially around 42,000 acres near Belle Glade. It started as a cattle ranch dubbed the Big B Ranch, but over time the focus shifted entirely to farming. Today, King Ranch's Florida holdings are about 20,000 acres of rich muck soils where they grow sugarcane, sweet corn, green beans, and specialty lettuce. With abundant rain and year-round growing weather, this land is incredibly productive. One King Ranch manager in Florida joked that the soil was so fertile you could grow a fence post if you watered it. But the crown jewel is citrus. In the 1990s, King Ranch made a bold move into Florida's orange groves. They led a partnership that acquired vast groves like the Turner Foods groves in 1999 for $124 million, making King Ranch, via its affiliate Consolidated Citrus, the largest citrus producer in the United States. How large? By the early 2000s, they owned nearly 40,000 acres of orange groves across 13 properties in Florida, capable of harvesting about 13 million boxes of oranges per year. That's roughly 6 to 7% of the entire U.S. citrus crop coming from King Ranch's groves. Most of these oranges are for juice, not surprising, as they supply brands like Minute Maid, making King Ranch a quiet giant in your breakfast OJ. It's pretty mind-blowing. A ranch known for longhorns and cowboys is also the #1 U.S. orange juice provider by volume. King Ranch's Florida groves mostly produce Valencia and Hamlin oranges for juicing, along with some grapefruit. This diversification helped the company balance the ups and downs of agriculture. In times when cattle or cotton prices were low, oranges or sugar could be high, and vice versa. As King Ranch's then CEO Jack Hunt said in 1999, they weren't chasing size for ego. They wanted enough citrus acreage to be an efficient competitor and manage commodity risk. It appears to have paid off as the ranch navigated the volatile 2000s with a broader base than just cattle. From Texas cotton fields to Florida orange groves, King Ranch proved it could transplant its expertise to totally different crops and regions. Few companies straddle states and sectors of agriculture at this scale, and through it all, they maintained a focus on innovation, whether that was building Texas's best cotton gin or adopting environmentally sensitive farming in their sod operations to conserve soil and water. The land and climate may differ, but the King Ranch ethos of do it big and do it right travels well. Now, as if managing cows, horses, and crops wasn't enough, King Ranch also became a pioneer in something rather unexpected for its time: wildlife management and game conservation. This is a personal favorite part of the story, blending ranching with ecology in a way that was decades ahead of its time. Wildlife and AMP, hunting, Caesar Kleberg's conservation legacy. Riding across King Ranch today, you're as likely to flush a covey of quail or spot a trophy buck as you are to see cattle. That's by design. King Ranch has been practicing wildlife management since the early 1900s, making it one of the birthplaces of private land conservation in America. The driving force behind this was a remarkable ranch foreman named Caesar Kleberg. Caesar Kleberg was Richard King's nephew who came to work on the ranch around 1900, and he had a passion for wildlife. At a time when most folks saw wild deer or quail as inexhaustible or even pests, Caesar realized that unregulated hunting and habitat loss were crashing those populations. He took action on the Norias division of King Ranch, where he was foreman. As early as 1912, he established hunting rules on the ranch. For example, no shooting quail on the Covey Rise, no hunting near water holes, and strict seasons for deer and turkey. This was revolutionary thinking back then. In 1925, Caesar went further. He closed over 400,000 acres of the ranch to all hunting for a few years to let deer and turkey rebound, and hired a full-time predator trapper to control varmints like coyotes. The result? By the late 1920s, populations had recovered so much that surplus deer and turkeys from King Ranch were live-trapped and used to restock other parts of Texas that had been hunted out. King Ranch literally became a wildlife reservoir for the state. A pair of nilgai antelope on the South Texas plains. These 600-pound blue bulls, native to India, were first released in North America on King Ranch in 1924 and today thrive in the wild on and around the ranch. Caesar Kleberg's most famous contribution was introducing the nilgai antelope to Texas. Fast forward to now, King Ranch's rangelands are home to an estimated 15,000 nilgai roaming wild, and they've expanded beyond the ranch. Approximately 30,000 nilgai are thought to roam South Texas today, almost all descended from that original King Ranch introduction. They are magnificent animals, slate blue bulls weighing up to 600 pounds that can run 35 miles per hour, crashing through brush like runaway bulls, and yes, outrunning even Usain Bolt. This is one of the most successful exotic game introductions in history, and it happened long before the word exotic wildlife was commonplace. King Ranch's wildlife program didn't end with Caesar Kleberg's death. He passed in 1946 after ensuring in his will to create a wildlife foundation that later funded the Caesar Kleberg Wildlife Research Institute. In 1945, King Ranch became likely the first private ranch in America to hire a full-time wildlife biologist, Val Lehman. Lehman pioneered scientific techniques like deer census lines, starting in 1967 to estimate game populations. Under his guidance, the ranch experimented with habitat improvements. They half-cut brush to create low cover for quail, planted living fences of prickly pear cactus for wildlife shelter, dug small ponds at windmills just for wildlife, and fenced the cattle out. Aldo Leopold himself, the father of wildlife management, visited and praised King Ranch in 1947, calling it one of the best jobs of wildlife restoration on the continent. High praise indeed. Today, Caesar Kleberg's vision carries on in King Ranch's hunting operations. The ranch runs a robust commercial hunting program that is world-renowned. Hunters from all over pay to hunt trophy white-tailed deer, quail, turkeys, and yes, even nilgai antelope on King Ranch's well-managed habitat. The revenue from hunting leases and guided hunts is another diversification for the ranch. It turns the healthy wildlife populations into a sustainable business, all while maintaining the ecological balance. But the emphasis is always on stewardship. The ranch carefully manages herd sizes, monitors range conditions, and only allows harvest of surplus bucks or bulls. Essentially, they treat wildlife like an additional crop, one that needs cultivation, habitat work, water, food plots, and wise harvesting. This model has since been emulated by ranches across the globe, but King Ranch was a trendsetter. It's no coincidence that the Caesar Kleberg Wildlife Research Institute, headquartered at Texas A&M, Kingsville, is a leading wildlife science center. It grew directly out of the work started on King Ranch. To give a concrete example, King Ranch guides often take hunters on safari-style outings for nilgai, which are extremely challenging to hunt due to their sharp senses and tough constitution. The ranch has learned to manage nilgai so they don't overwhelm the habitat needed by native deer, while still keeping plenty around for a unique hunting experience. In a full-circle twist, nilgai meat has even made it onto the menu at the ranch's restaurant. More on that soon, proving the ranch can integrate wildlife, livestock, and business in creative ways. The wildlife story of King Ranch is one of balance, balancing cattle with deer, agriculture with ecology. By solving challenges like overhunting and drought for wildlife, windmills and water tanks benefit deer and quail just as much as cattle. King Ranch ensured that the land could support both beef and wild game for generations to come. This holistic mindset was ahead of its time and is a big reason the ranch's rangelands are still teeming with life, not overgrazed deserts. Now, to round out the picture, we need to look at how King Ranch extended its brand beyond ranching in some very high-profile ways. From pickup trucks to retail stores to fine dining, King Ranch leveraged its mystique and history to diversify even further. Let's explore those business ventures that carry the Running W brand into new arenas. Beyond the ranch, the King Ranch brand and business diversification. If you've heard of King Ranch but aren't into cattle or horses, it might be because you've seen a Ford King Ranch F-150 cruising down the highway. Yes, even if you've never set foot on a ranch, you can buy a piece of the King Ranch lifestyle in the form of a luxury pickup truck. This is one of the smartest brand partnerships in the auto world. Ford Motor Company teamed up with King Ranch in 2001 to launch King Ranch editions of their trucks and SUVs, decking them out with rich saddle brown leather and the ranch's Running W cattle brand logo on the seats. The Running W is iconic. It's been the ranch's brand since 1869, and legend has it the shape is inspired by a rattlesnake or the curves of a river. The truth has been lost to lore. Seeing that brand embossed on a truck's leather seats instantly evokes rugged Texas heritage and cowboy luxury. About 40% of King Ranch F-150s sell in Texas alone, where folks know the name. It's a win-win. Ford gets the authenticity and cachet of the King Ranch name, and King Ranch gets royalties and a fleet of trucks for ranch work, plus national brand exposure. King Ranch has also built its own retail operation off the ranch's cowboy mystique. The King Ranch Saddle Shop, based in Kingsville, started as a place to buy the ranch's handmade saddles, tack, and leather goods. Over time it expanded, and today it's a luxury leather goods brand selling everything from fine leather luggage and handbags to ranch-inspired home decor. Walk into the saddle shop or visit their catalog/website, and you'll find high-end briefcases, boots, wallets, and of course saddles, often stamped with that running W. They even produce King Ranch-branded outdoor gear and apparel. The saddle shop caters to folks who may never ride a horse, but love the idea of Texas ranch style and quality craftsmanship. It's another example of translating the ranch's heritage into a business venture. And it doesn't hurt that the shop's products carry a bit of legend with them. For instance, the leather is often marketed as the same type that's in King Ranch Fords, and the designs are ranch tested. It's a small but shiny part of the King Ranch portfolio, showing the brand's reach into retail and lifestyle. And then we have King Ranch Texas Kitchen, a recent venture that brings the ranch straight to the dinner table. Opened in 2020 in Houston through a partnership with Landry's Incorporated, this upscale steakhouse is themed entirely around King Ranch's heritage. The decor is ranch chic, and the menu is full of South Texas fare with a twist. They serve classics like smoked brisket queso and pan de campo, the official bread of Texas ranches, alongside premium steaks and wild game. In fact, one of their signature offerings is meal guy antelope meat from the ranch. Talk about field to fork. Imagine enjoying a tender nilgai backstrap steak in a restaurant, knowing the animal roamed 200 miles south on King Ranch's savannas. The Texas Kitchen prides itself on using homegrown Texas ranch meats and locally sourced produce. It's like a big, delicious advertisement for King Ranch's bounty, beef from their cattle division, game from their wildlife management, maybe even citrus in the cocktails from their groves. This restaurant solidifies King Ranch not just as a producer of raw goods, but as a culinary brand. It's Texas heritage colliding with modern cuisine, as their marketing says. And of course, it's another income stream and publicity engine for the ranch. Beyond these, King Ranch has dabbled in numerous other ventures. They've licensed their name to furniture lines. They also own a farm equipment dealership arm, King Ranch AG and AMP, turf, selling John Deere equipment in partnership, fitting, since a ranch this size uses plenty of tractors. In the mid-20th century, King Ranch even expanded overseas, purchasing ranches in Argentina, Brazil, Australia, Cuba, Venezuela, Spain, and Morocco. While many of those were later sold off in the 1980s downturn, it shows the ambition. At one point, King Ranch was managing millions of acres worldwide, exporting its know-how globally. Oil was another big diversification. The ranch sits on oil and gas deposits, and since the 1940s, royalties from energy, in partnership with companies like Exxon, have poured money into King Ranch's coffers. That financial bolster helped them weather tough agricultural years and reinvest in new businesses. What's remarkable is how King Ranch transformed from a one-dimensional cattle outfit into a diversified agribusiness while maintaining a consistent identity. Whether it's a cow, a quarter horse, an orange grove, or a pickup truck, the King Ranch name carries weight. It stands for tradition, quality, and resilience. And the leadership of the ranch, still largely in the hands of descendants of Richard King and the Clayburgh family, has treated it like a living, evolving enterprise. They've shown that embracing change, new markets, new technology, even new species of animal, can be done without losing your roots.
They moved thousands of cattle out of Texas just to save the land during a brutal drought. They sold for over $300 million and still run one of the largest quarter-horse programs in the world. And yes, their pastures are so iconic, they're now part of Yellowstone's universe. This is the 6666 Ranch, better known as the Four Sixes. And its real story is even more impressive than the legend. From oil strikes to elite genetics, from cowboy grit to global fame, we're digging into the history, power, and secrets behind one of America's most legendary ranches. You're watching Digital Papyrus. Hit subscribe if you're into stories that blend business, heritage, and wild Texas scale. Let's ride into the legacy of the Four Sixes. The Four Sixes story begins in the era of open ranges and cattle drives. It was founded by Captain Samuel Burke Burnett, a Texas cowboy turned cattleman, in the late 19th century. According to family history, young Burke got his start herding wild longhorn cattle up the trails and selling them up north. In 1870, at just 21 years old, he made a fateful deal, purchasing 100 head of cattle from a rancher named Frank Crowley. These weren't just any cattle. They all wore the Four Sixes brand, an eye-catching mark that was hard for rustlers to alter. Burnett was so keen on that brand's integrity that he bought the rights to the Four Sixes brand along with the herd. And so the name Four Sixes was born, cementing a brand that would come to symbolize quality on the open range. But was the ranch really won with a poker hand? An enduring Texas legend claims that Burke Burnett won the ranch itself in a high-stakes card game with a hand of 4 sixes. It's a colorful tale fit for a Western movie, and it gave the ranch a mystique that endures. However, the Burnett family has always denied this poker story. The truth is that the name came from those first branded cattle, not a deck of cards. Real history, it turns out, is just as impressive as the myth. Building a cattle empire in the 1800s, Captain Burke Burnett proved to be a savvy rancher and businessman. In 1881, he secured a lease on large tracts of tribal land in present-day Oklahoma, expanding his cattle operations and even earning the friendship of Comanche leader Quanah Parker. By 1900, Burnett had acquired the land in King County, West Texas, that would become the core of the Four Sixes Ranch. He chose the site near Guthrie, Texas, for its water and grass, and established the Four Sixes headquarters there. Burnett introduced improved beef cattle breeds onto the ranch, first Durham Shorthorn cattle and later purebred Herefords, to upgrade the quality of the longhorn herds. His careful breeding paid off with prize-winning stock, and soon the Four Sixes cattle were renowned among the finest in Texas. Burnett's success allowed him to invest in the best. In 1917, he decided to construct the finest ranch house in West Texas on the property. He spared no expense. The Grand Four Sixes ranch house in Guthrie cost $100,000 to build, an astronomical sum at that time. Designed by a top architectural firm, this elegant 21-room mansion served as the ranch headquarters and a symbol of the Four Sixes' prosperity and permanence on the plains. The early 20th century brought both challenges and windfalls. In 1918, a brutal winter blizzard struck West Texas and killed 2,000 head of Burnett's cattle in one blow. It was a devastating loss, but the ranch recovered and learned to respect the fickle nature of Texas weather. Just a few years later, in 1921, luck tilted in the Four Sixes' favor with a discovery that changed everything. Oil was found beneath the rangeland. The first oil well on the ranch, in the Dixon Creek section near Panhandle, Texas, came in at 175 barrels in its first day and flowed steadily for over 50 years. This was the first big oil strike in the Texas Panhandle field, and it triggered a local boom. Suddenly, the dusty cow country saw an influx of wildcatters, oil workers, and fortune seekers. By the late 1920s, pump jacks dotted parts of the ranch, and oil revenue began to rival cattle as the ranch's financial backbone. With petroleum profits gushing in, Burke Burnett's outfit became more than just a ranch. It was an energy enterprise too. In fact, the oil wealth was so great that it later funded the Burnett Foundation, a charitable organization still benefiting Texas communities today. Captain Burnett himself, however, didn't get to enjoy this full oil boom. He passed away in 1922, just a year after the first strike. In a letter to a friend shortly before his death, Burnett quipped about the oil rush, saying, "There is more money in oil than cattle, don't you think?" It turns out he was right. Oil would secure the Four Sixes Ranch through the ups and downs of the 20th century. After Burke Burnett's death, the Four Sixes stayed in the family, ensuring continuity of vision. His granddaughter Anne Valiant Burnett, later Anne Burnett Tandy, inherited the ranch in the 1920s. Under her stewardship, the operation kept expanding. By 1936, the Four Sixes was running an astonishing 20,000 head of Hereford cattle, making it one of the largest cattle operations in Texas. Anne also shared her grandfather's passion for horses. She added renowned quarter-horse bloodlines to the ranch, including stallions like Gray Badger II and Hollywood Gold, which became foundation sires in the American quarter-horse world. This laid the groundwork for the ranch's future as a top horse breeder. Throughout the mid-1900s, the Four Sixes Ranch became an icon of the American West. Its very image was used to evoke the cowboy lifestyle. In fact, during the 1960s and 70s, the ranch's picturesque red barn and rolling plains appeared in Marlboro cigarette ads, symbolizing the rugged freedom of the West. Hollywood even came knocking. The 1975 Western film Macintosh and T.J., starring Roy Rogers, was partly filmed on the Four Sixes Ranch, showcasing its authentic ranch scenery. The Four Sixes had truly become a living legend, known in households far beyond Texas. By 1980, the ranch passed to the next generation. Burke's great-granddaughter, Anne Burnett Winfor Marion, often just Anne Marion, assumed ownership, along with her daughter Wendy. Anne Marion, a savvy businesswoman and philanthropist, continued the legacy while ushering the ranch into modern times. Along with ranch manager Joe Kirk Fulton initially, and later Joe Leathers, she made forward-thinking changes to keep the operation profitable and progressive. For example, in the 1980s, the ranch introduced Brangus cattle Brahman times Angus into their Hereford herds, producing hardy black baldy cattle that had hybrid vigor and resistance to pests like cedar flies. Over time, the breeding focus shifted entirely to Angus cattle, reflecting beef market trends toward Angus beef quality. On the horse side, the Four Sixes program exploded into world-class prominence under longtime horse division manager Dr. Glenn Blodgett. The ranch stood some of the most famous quarter-horse stallions of the 20th century. Legends like Dash for Cash, Streakin' Six, and Special Effort, whose offspring collectively earned over $80 million on the racetrack. In 1993, the ranch won the AQHA Best Remuda Award, recognizing its outstanding herd of working ranch horses. And in 2013, it was named AQHA Racing Champion Breeder, reflecting its dominance in quarter horse racing. The Four Sixes had firmly established itself as a dual powerhouse in cattle ranching and horse breeding, all while carefully tending its land and traditions. Fast forward to today, and Four Sixes Ranch remains a thriving enterprise, one that honors its history while embracing modern ranching techniques. After 150-plus years of family ownership, a major change occurred in 2020 to 2022. Following the passing of Anne Marion in 2020, the historic ranch was put up for sale for the first time ever. A buyer group fronted by Taylor Sheridan, a Texas cowboy turned Hollywood producer best known for creating Yellowstone, purchased the Four Sixes Ranch in 2022. The sale included all three divisions of the operation: the main Four Sixes Ranch, plus the Dixon Creek and Frisco Creek ranch lands, and totaled roughly 266,000 acres of Texas land. The asking price? A staggering $341 million, underscoring the immense value of this legacy property. It was the ultimate testament to what generations of investment, hard work, and reputation had built. Despite new ownership, the day-to-day ranch life continues uninterrupted, guided by many of the same managers and crew who have been here for years. The Four Sixes remains headquartered in Guthrie, Texas, which is more of a tiny community, population approximately 160, than a town. In fact, Guthrie is essentially the ranch headquarters. From here, the ranch's business branches out into several key areas. Black Angus cattle operations. The Four Sixes is foremost a cow-calf ranch, running about 7,000 mother cows on its vast pastures. These cows produce calves each year that are either retained for breeding or sold as quality feeder cattle. After decades of refining its herds, the ranch now specializes in Angus genetics to meet today's beef market demand. The cattle are known for their quality and consistency. The ranch's reputation as a front-runner in the cattle industry continues strong. In recent years, the Sixes even launched Four Sixes Ranch Brand Beef, a direct-to-consumer beef program that ships premium steak cuts nationwide, leveraging the ranch's name for top-quality meat. From breeding and backgrounding cattle to marketing branded beef, the Four Sixes Ranch stays involved in every step of the beef supply chain. Elite Quarter Horse Program. Horses are the pride of the Four Sixes. The ranch stands over 40 top quarter horse stallions at stud, making it one of the world's foremost quarter horse breeding operations. Many of these stallions are owned by outside clients but managed and stood by the ranch, drawing mare owners from all over. Modern reproductive technology is fully embraced. The ranch's on-site veterinarians collect and ship cooled and frozen semen globally, so breeders anywhere can tap into Sixes bloodlines. Each year, around 100 elite broodmares are bred, producing foals with coveted pedigrees. Horses born and raised on the Four Sixes are known for cow sense, athleticism, and good temperament, traits carefully cultivated over a century. Some colts and fillies are kept as working ranch horses. Others go on to championship rodeo, cutting, and racing careers, and many of the best are offered to the public through high-profile sales. In fact, the Four Sixes co-host the annual Return to the Remuda Horse Sale, partnering with 5 other famous ranches, like the King Ranch and Pitchfork Ranch, to sell ranch-bred horses to buyers around the world. In 2024, the sale at the Sixes saw 148 horses sold, grossing over $3.3 million, an average of $22,000 per horse, with buyers coming from across the U.S. and internationally. These numbers prove that Four Sixes horses are among the most sought after on the market. Land and water management. Managing 260,000 plus acres of land requires meticulous care, and the Four Sixes Ranch prides itself on responsible stewardship. Conservation isn't a buzzword, but a necessity here. The range is divided into 119 pastures, some as large as 16,000 acres each. In these pastures, the stocking rate is deliberately kept moderate, roughly 1 cow-calf pair per 30 acres, to prevent overgrazing and protect the delicate semi-arid ecosystem. This strategy ensures that even in dry times, the grass and soil stay healthy and the cattle remain well fed. Water is life on a Texas ranch, so the Sixes has invested in extensive water infrastructure, 18 solar-powered wells, 29 traditional windmills, and 10 submersible pump wells feed 66 watering troughs scattered across the range. This network allows livestock and wildlife to thrive even in areas far from natural creeks. Managing such a spread is a huge job. The ranch employs between 50 and 100 employees depending on season, including nearly 20 full-time cowboys who still do things the old-fashioned way. On horseback, with trusty cow dogs at their side. Many employees are second or third generation ranch hands, proud to carry on the tradition as part of the Sixes family. Drought resilience and sustainable practices. The Four Sixes' commitment to the land is perhaps best demonstrated by how it handles drought, a constant challenge in West Texas. In 2011, a severe drought tested the ranch's resolve. Rather than graze the pastures into ruin, the ranch management made a bold decision: move the entire cattle herd out of state to find temporary pasture. It was an enormous undertaking and expensive, but it saved the land from ecological damage and preserved the genetic bloodline of the herd for the future. Ranch manager Joe Leathers explained that protecting the range and the livelihoods of the ranch families took priority over short-term economics. After some badly needed rainfall, the cattle were brought home, and the wisdom of that sacrifice became clear. The grasslands recovered, and both cattle and wildlife rebounded quickly. For these efforts, the Four Sixes Ranch earned the Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association's Outstanding Rangeland Stewardship Award, 2014, and the National Environmental Stewardship Award, Region 4, in 2015. The ranch also embraces technology like electronic ID tags, EIDs, to track and manage its cattle with precision. During the 2011 relocation, EID systems proved invaluable, and now ultra-high-frequency tag scanners are used to monitor herds hands-free, reducing stress on the animals and giving detailed data on their health and performance. Whether it's old-school brush control, spending over $100,000 a year to clear invasive mesquite and cedar and improve grazing land, or new-school data tracking, the 6666 Ranch invests in the long-term productivity of its resources. Wildlife and conservation. With its vast acreage of varied habitat, the Four Sixes is home to abundant wildlife. White-tailed deer, bobwhite quail, mourning doves, feral hogs, and even predators like coyotes and bobcats roam the ranch's prairies and breaks. Rather than over-commercialize hunting, the ranch's philosophy has leaned toward conservation. In fact, parts of the Four Sixes traditionally allowed little to no commercial hunting, ensuring wildlife populations remained robust. The ranch has been actively involved in efforts to restore quail populations, partnering as an anchor ranch in the Quail Tech Alliance with Texas Tech University. This program turns large ranches into living laboratories to research why quail numbers have declined and how to bring them back. By participating in these studies across 1.6 million acres of West Texas, spread over many ranches, the Four Sixes is helping to ensure that the iconic quail hunting tradition can thrive for future generations. Thanks to careful land management, like controlled grazing, water improvements, and selective brush clearing, the ranch supports both profitable livestock and healthy wildlife. Visitors driving through might see a trophy buck bounding across a fence line or a huge covey of quail whirring up from the grass, testaments to a balanced ranch ecosystem. Oil, gas, and new ventures. The pump jacks that started turning in 1921 are still an important part of the Four Sixes story. Generations later, oil and gas continue to be active revenue streams on the ranch. Over the years, new wells have been developed, notably a large oil field discovered on the main Four Sixes Ranch in 1969, and the ranch has partnered with energy companies to tap its mineral wealth. Even as of 2018, large portions of the ranch's acreage were leased for exploration by Burnett Oil Co. Reflecting how the Burnett legacy in oil lives on, the ranch retained part of its mineral rights in the recent sale. Additionally, the ranch's vast land holds potential for wind and solar energy. In the sale listing, all solar and wind rights were included, hinting that the new owners could pursue renewable energy projects on those windy Texas plains. Popular culture and tourism. One of the most fascinating new crops the 6666 Ranch is cultivating is its Hollywood connection. Taylor Sheridan's involvement has shown a spotlight on the ranch in popular culture. The Four Sixes was prominently featured in Season 4 of Yellowstone, when one of the characters travels to Texas and the ranch effectively plays itself on screen. This appearance was a backdoor pilot for a planned spin-off TV series centered on the 6666 Ranch, bringing the real history and scenery of the Sixes to millions of viewers. While still in development, that series has generated huge buzz. The idea that a real, working ranch is the star of a primetime show is exciting to both ranchers and TV audiences. The ranch has even begun offering limited tour opportunities for the public, knowing that fans are eager to see the land where the Dutton universe meets real-life Texas ranching. And of course, the Four Sixes brand now adorns everything from apparel to a new line of seasonings and sauces. As the ranch's mystique becomes a marketing asset, far from being stuck in the past, the Four Sixes is embracing this new role as a cultural icon, all while keeping its boots firmly planted in the dirt.